Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Hello travelers, PA Nightmares here. I've noticed that over 30% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So, if you're a new or a returning viewer and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what I do, liking the video and commenting as well, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and it really does help the channel grow. Well, I've taken enough of your time. On to the main event. A job as a pizza delivery driver can be dangerous, but I'm sure most of you already knew that. However, my job is dangerous for different reasons. What do I mean by that? Well, to start, call me Pete. Though most people in my town just call me the Pizza Man, some even just call me Pizza Pete. Now as for which town I live in, I'm not going to say, for two reasons. One, the fewer people that are here, the easier my job is. And two, our town is dangerous, not just for the usual reasons I'm going to describe, but also the fact we have a lot of crime in our area. You see, people in my town are fucking crazy. I've been stabbed by someone because I didn't bring them a cold bottle of soda. Yes, that actually happened to me. Now that you have at least a vague idea of the kind of area I live in, let me tell you where I work. I work at a mom and pop's pizza place. The owners named it after themselves, so I can't tell you what it's actually called, but for the purpose of this post and any future ones, I'll be referring to it as formaggio's. That means cheese in Italian, and I'll be referring to the owners, aka my bosses, as Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio. Their pizza shop happens to be the only pizza place in town, unless you happen to count places like grocery stores, where you can get frozen pizzas. And while those pizzas are alright, they pale in comparison to the pizzas Formaggio makes. But enough of that. You're probably waiting for me to elaborate on what I meant by unusual reasons. I mentioned that the people in the town I live in are nuts, but it's not just that. The town seems to attract crazies, on top of all that other weird shit. And sure, occasionally a relatively normal person will come to our town, but those types of people clearly want to get through it as quickly as they can. Even rarer are the supposed normal people, who decide they want to move here, usually because they want to live somewhere quiet. What usually happens to those types of people is that they turn out to be the craziest people of all, or they go missing. As a matter of fact, a town's junkyard is filled with the abandoned, mangled cars of the people that went missing. Sometimes there'll be a license plate left over that the local police are able to figure out a missing person's address and get in contact with the loved ones. If they don't have a wallet or something like that that got left behind that they can look through, I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the cops keep the money found in those wallets and purses for themselves. But hey, they are at least somewhat competent at their jobs, so I'll give them that. While there have been a few cars found that have been damaged in abnormal ways, most cars here are damaged in car wrecks. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but we actually have a pretty serious drunk driving problem. Anyway, I should probably expand on the whole abnormal ways thing. For one, the cars almost always seem to be found far away from the road. Not just far away, but in pieces. It seemed almost impossible for them to get without a helicopter lifting them or something like that. I even saw one police report that they found a car stuck in a tree. I should probably mention the trees around here are mostly oak and range from 80 to 100 feet in height, so it would be almost impossible for it to end up there on its own. That's just one incident. There was another where a car had been found that looked like something had pushed the front and back ends together. In that case, a body was recovered. Luckily, his wallet was still there. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to identify him. But people going missing isn't the strange thing that happens in our town. It's when they come back. Usually, after about a month or so, we tend to call those people the returned, for lack of a better word. Anyways, at first, you might want to call them zombies, but the strange thing is, these people aren't technically undead. And while I know that word doesn't necessarily apply to something undead, I don't want you to think I'm talking about flesh eaters. That being said, the returned are extremely dangerous. I'm going to tell you about the encounter I had with one just yesterday. It was around 6 a.m. when I woke up, then went outside. Mr. Formaggio has me come in between 8 and 8:30 to do prep for the day. Since my shifts usually tend to end up being 10 to 12 hour ones, I'm usually too tired to get any exercise when I get back, so I choose to do it in the morning. Anyway, I had been walking around for about a half an hour. During this time, no shops had opened up yet. They all wait till sunrise to do that. I had walked to the center of town, where Formaggio's is located by the way, when I noticed someone on the other side of the street. They were facing away from me, and were making these jittery movements. Thinking that it was just some meth head or something, I continued my walk. It didn't take me long to realize that this person was trying to track me. Annoyed, I considered heading back to my place. I do keep a pocket knife and a gun on me, so if this person did try something, I wouldn't have much issue trying to fight them off. However, I didn't want it to come to that. I'd rather not have to stab or shoot someone. As I was considering heading home, the person turned to me. The first thing I noticed about them was their glowing yellow eyes. They stepped closer under the streetlight, and I was able to see everything about them. The person in question turned out to be a female. Her skin was pale, and her hair was blonde, with multiple patches of gray running through it. We looked at each other for a few moments, before she made this rattling shriek. Her body contorted, making several loud cracks, until her hands and feet were on the ground in like a spider pose. Quickly, she started crawling across the street towards me. I didn't hesitate to pull out my gun, then shot her point blank in the head. She fell over, and after twitching for a few moments, fell still. By this time, the sun was starting to show itself, and several people had come outside, no doubt having heard the gunshot, one of whom was the town sheriff named Chuck. I made sure to put my gun away before he approached me, still in his pajamas. He looked down at the woman's body, then to me, and asked, "Another one?" "Yep," I replied. He sighed and said, "God damn it, how do these people always end up like this?" "Huh, beats me. Just so you know, it was another one of those spider ones again." "I figured, the way her limbs are bent." "Do you need me to come to the station and answer any questions?" "That won't be necessary, Pete. We can take care of the body. But we will be ordering pizza later today, so you'll be coming by later anyways. Speaking of, what's the specials this week? I haven't had a chance to check it out." "Hey, I'm glad you asked. I actually have a seasonal feta cheese pizza with sausage and black olives." "I might have to give that a try." "I highly recommend that. And oh shit, it's almost 7. I have to get home so I can get ready for work." "No problem, Pete. Take care." "You too," I told Chuck, then started sprinting back towards my house. I know that seems like a pretty mundane reaction to what I just described, but as you've probably figured out, this isn't the first time something like that has happened in our town. Hell, that wasn't even my first time encountering something like that, nor am I the only one in town who has had something like that happen to them. Ask around town if people have witnessed anything strange. Chances are you'll get a story like mine, if not one even weirder. Anyways, thankfully for me, I didn't run into any more trouble on the way home. However, I did notice some things were amiss. Mostly, I was seeing moving shapes in the woods nearby, but I couldn't really make them out due to how far away they were. All I noticed about them was they had glowing eyes similar to the woman I saw. The only difference was their eyes were glowing with multiple different colors, not just yellow. One particular pair of eyes gave me an uneasy feeling. Those were a pair of amber eyes that almost seemed to flicker like a flame. The reason they had made me feel uneasy was that I hadn't seen any creature with those eyes, and I hadn't heard about anyone who had seen it either. I decided to ignore it and head inside. An hour or so later, I had gotten ready, then headed to work. Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio greeted me when I arrived. "Hey, Pete, I heard what happened. You all right?" Mr. Formaggio asked. "I'm fine, thanks for asking, though. Besides prepping, is there anything I should know about?" "Carl called in another order. He said he's going to want 5 of the specialty pizzas and a Caesar salad," Mrs. Formaggio said. "Carl is the one who owns the gun store in town. Most people know him as Crazy Carl, and while there is something off about him, He's ironically our best and most polite customer. At least, I haven't had any issues with the guy. In fact, he's saved several people around town from the returned and other creatures. Will do. I'll be sure to deliver the order to him later today. Oh, by the way, we'll probably be getting a call from Chuck wanting some of the specialty pizzas later today. Thanks for letting us know, Pete. Can you do us a favor and make 20 more portions than usual for when he calls? Mr. Formaggio asked. Will do, I said, and then got to work. After prepping everything and heating up the ovens, I made sure to set up the tables. We actually have a pretty nice sit-down area for the people who feel like eating inside the restaurant. Anyway, the day went pretty well at first. Then, around 5, Carl and Chuck called in their orders. It took about an hour to make all their pizzas, and I was the one that had to deliver them. The station and Carl's store are located near each other, so it wasn't much of an issue for me to deliver them there. I usually end up using Mr. Formaggio's car to make deliveries. Crazy Carl's was the first place I stopped at. I walked into a store carrying the 5 pizzas and a bottle of Coke. Pizza Pete, I'm glad to see you. I've been waiting all day for these bad boys, he said, taking the pizza and soda from me. I hope you enjoy it, Carl. I'd love to stay and chat for a few minutes, but I gotta make a delivery to the station. Take care of yourself then, and be careful. I heard there may be a thunderstorm today. I will. I actually had a run-in with a return this morning. I heard about that. I had myself a run-in with one of them flying creatures. I heard about those. When did it happen? A few nights ago. That son of a bitch woke me up at like 3 in the morning by landing on my roof. It tried to attack me as soon as I stepped outside, but you know how quick I am with my shots. My shotgun got the bastard to one of its legs. I would have finished it off, but the pussy flew in the woods. I see. I'll be sure to stay on my guard then. Later. See ya, Carl told me. After that, I headed to the station. I was lucky enough to have Chuck approach my car. Hey, everything's at the station, I asked, putting my window down and handing him the food. Been pretty good. We'll need to make more of that special ammo, though. How've things been for you since the return incident, I mean? Huh? I delivered to Carl today. He told me that one of those flying creatures attacked him a few nights ago. Can't say I'm surprised. You'd think he'd have moved closer to town by now, instead of living in the woods. Well, everyone knows the man enjoys his solitude. Anyway, I gotta get back to the store. Enjoy the food. Judging by this wonderful smell. I will. Take care, Pete, he told me. I waved him goodbye, then headed back to Formaggio's. I worked a couple more hours until my shift ended around 8:30. When I headed out, it was starting to rain. By the time I got home, it was pouring. The rain has still been going on since last night. Fortunately, I have the weekends off, except for when I get called in. So, I've just been playing games all day. I'll update you all if something else happens. Remember, to stay safe and have fun. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. So, some bullshit just happened to me today. Well, technically yesterday, as of posting this. I got called into work. Apparently, Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio had a family emergency involving Mrs. Formaggio's mother. So, they couldn't run the store. Yours truly was the first person they called. Now, I know that getting called in is just something that can't be avoided. Thing is, the rain from last night had still been going on. And the returned and other creatures tend to come out more during darker times, such as when visibility is low due to heavy rain or fog in some cases. The town does have a procedure where owners of shops can choose not to open their stores until the weather clears up. Thing is, there are a good bit of opportunistic criminals who will take these opportunities to try and break into closed stores, and Formaggio's tends to make a lot of money. Before I went out, I had to make a few preparations in addition to what I normally do. I made sure to bring my utility belt, which I use to keep several more knives on me, and plus the knife and gun I normally carry. The knives in question have several different runes that I wrote on the blades. People in town figured that most creatures that weren't susceptible to brute force were weakened by certain symbols. This was all figured out by early settlers of our town, or at least that's the theory. At the town's library, there is an old book containing various runes and symbols corresponding to different creatures. For example, you'd open it to a page to see 4 symbols. Then next to it the words, Blue Eyes Wide-Mouthed Creature. This helps people to know that those runes weaken that creature specifically. Most everybody in town has a copy of the original book, thanks to the librarian Alice. She handwrote multiple copies for the town. My hand hurts after writing just 2 pages. I have no idea how she was able to do it. You might be thinking that people in town put multiple sets of runes on the same blade. That, however, isn't a very good idea. Each set of runes can only be applied to a single object at a time. If someone tried putting 2 or more sets of runes on the same object, they'd just cancel each other out. But that's just for small objects, such as a knife. Larger objects, such as a house or store, can have multiple runes on them, so long as each set is far enough apart from each other. When on a larger object, they have their own radius, and so long as the different sets of runes are far enough apart from each other on said object, they'll work just fine. In fact, my house and many other homes and buildings in town are covered in these sets of runes. But while they do keep the returned and many other creatures at bay, they don't stop assholes who try breaking into stores. That's where I come in. I made sure to peek out before stepping outside. I was fortunate enough not to see any returned or glowing pairs of eyes. My luck changed when I stepped out and locked the door behind me. I looked up to see what we call a long-necked creature staring down at me from my roof. It had fleshy, red, scorpion-like skin, 4 legs similar to that of a spider, and to top it all off, a long neck, duh, with a rounded head, sharp teeth, and white eyes. Its face was just a few inches from mine. It opened its mouth wide to bite me, but before it could, I pulled out one of my knives, thrust it into one of its eyes. I pulled my knife out before it hit the ground. Then, when it did, I cut its throat. I had to, or else its dying screams would have attracted more creatures. A few spurts of green blood shot from its neck before it fell still. Shaking my head in annoyance, I got in my car. Usually, I would have just walked to work since it's so close by. However, a lot of these fuckers can attack someone in a half an hour, and I'm fortunate enough to own a car with a quiet engine. It took me a few minutes to reach work. On my way there, I saw many returned running along the streets and sidewalks. Also, other creatures crawling up buildings, even a few flying creatures. I assumed those must be like the ones Carl encountered. When I got to Formaggio's, I was greeted with the sight of 6 returned, but these returned looked different. While still in the spider pose, these looked as if 2 people had their waists cut off, then were fused to the other person that had that happen to them. If you've ever seen Cat Dog, that should let you know what they were like. They had white eyes and were just staring at my headlights, most likely because they thought my car was one of them. They aren't exactly smart. I was considering what I should do. I could have just run them over, but I just took my car to the mechanics last week. My second option was just to shoot them, but if it wasn't quick enough to kill them all, they'd just start shrieking when they saw one of their kind was killed and attract more of them, or something even worse. I thought about honking my horn. It does work to scare them away. However, it may just end up attracting another creature. Just move, you pieces of shit, I thought. Just as I was thinking this, I heard the sound of a siren and saw blue and red lights in the distance. All of the returned immediately started crawling towards it. Seizing the opportunity, I was able to drive up to Formaggio's and park, then unlock the door and head inside. It wasn't long after heading inside that I heard several gunshots, followed by the sounds of the police car coming towards the store. I clocked in and was able to start some prep before Chuck approached the building, along with his deputy Bill. Hey guys, want to come in? The store isn't open yet, and I started on the prepping. Thanks, Pete. Come on, Sam, Chuck said, stepping into the store with Sam behind him. By the way, thanks for drawing those fuckers away from me. Don't mention it, but weren't you supposed to be off today? The Formaggios had a family emergency. I see. Anyone else working today? Just me. I suggested to Mr. Formaggio that at least one other person should be working with me, but he said we aren't busy enough during this kind of weather to justify it. Just my luck. I'm the only thing standing between this store and drugged out cokeheads trying to break in. Sorry to hear that, Pete. We'd love to stay and help, but we need to make sure other stores are safe. Huh, I understand. Why don't you come back later? I'll make sure to give you each a free pizza. That sounds nice. Well, we better get going. Right on. Oh, before you go, I actually encountered one of those long neck things. Its body is in my driveway, so if you could, Understood. We'll have someone clear it up as soon as we can, Chuck said. Then he and Sam left. Sam doesn't talk all that much, in case you haven't noticed, and tends to be a more by-the-book cop. Well, as by-the-book as you can be in this town. Anyway, by the time I finished up prepping and setting everything up, I saw another car pull up. It rolled in, then parked with smoke coming out of its hood. A man who looked roughly the same age as me stepped out. He was thin with blonde hair and brown eyes. Hey, my car broke down. Mind if I sit here for a bit and call a tow truck? He asked. Sure, but one probably won't come through here for a while. Why's that? I explained to him that it gets more dangerous around here during thunderstorms, obviously leaving out the parts about the returned and creatures like that. I just told him that muggings and break-ins tend to happen more often during weather like this. Through casual conversation, I learned his name was Nick, and that he was passing through town on his way to his grandpa's funeral. Your grandpa died. Condolences, man. I've been there, I told him. Thanks. I felt really bad, but he was in his 80s. It was bound to happen eventually. Still doesn't make it any easier to deal with, though. I live out of state, which is why I'm driving. I thought it'd be cheaper than flying. Then this happened, Nick said, gesturing towards the car outside. Wish I could help somehow. It's alright. It'll get fixed when it gets fixed. Actually, I haven't eaten since yesterday, he said, picking up one of the menus. He ended up ordering a mushroom and pepperoni pizza, along with some pasta and a beer. On the house, I said to him, after setting his food down. Thanks, Pete. I'm probably going to be back through here after the funeral. I'd like for us to hang out. Let's just hope it isn't raining again when you come back through, I said. We talked more about different things, favorite movies, food, and things like that. The rain let up, but by the time it did, it was nightfall. Hey, this area tends to get pretty dangerous at night. Why don't I take you to my place? I asked him. You sure? I don't want to intrude. Nah, it's fine. I just need to close. I had just finished closing when I heard Nick yell, What the fuck is that thing? He screamed. I looked up to see another one of the white-eyed long-necked creatures staring at us from the street. Oh, that. Yeah, we get those sometime. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wouldn't believe me. Now see what's going on here. What? You drugged my beer, didn't you? What? No, why would I do that? Hell if I know. Maybe you're just bored and this is how you get your kicks. I thought you were cool. I'm leaving, Nick said, heading to the door. No, I said, getting in front of him. That thing isn't a hallucination. If you leave the store while it's still out there, it will kill you. Why should I believe you? Do you really want to go out there and take that chance? He looked at the creature, then back to me. Okay, you have a point. Assuming the thing is real, how do we get rid of it? Well, I could go out and kill it, but there might be more. There are more of them? Yeah, I'll explain when we get to my place. The creature went away a few minutes after we were done talking. I clocked out, then drove Nick to my house. He was spooked about all the creatures he saw on the way. Apparently, he hadn't had any encounters on his way into town. Once we were in my house, I explained to him the full story about this town. He still thinks I probably drugged him. Hopefully, by tomorrow, he'll believe me. He seems like a nice guy, and I'd hate for something to happen to him. He's asleep on my couch right now. Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio won't be back until Wednesday. As I'm finishing typing this, it's nearly 20 to 6, and I have an opening shift in under 3 hours. Fuck my life, right? Oh well, at least I have someone to work with this time. And I'll be sure to pound back some energy drinks. Wish me luck. I'll update you all probably next week, if and when something else happens. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. Hey guys, it's Nick from the last post. If you're wondering what Pete is, he's in the hospital. I visited him and he said he got his leg stabbed and broken by what he describes as some incredibly fucked up shit. Before I tell you all about it, I have to admit I was wrong about what I accused him of before. All it took was seeing another one of those monstrosities the next night after he let me stay at his place. In that instance, I saw what was known as a big mouth, which was a spherical spider-leg creature with a large mouth, as its name implies, full of razor-sharp teeth. I was outside getting some fresh air on Pete's porch when I saw the thing come out of the woods. I would have gone back inside, but my dumbass ended up blocking myself out. Given that Pete's house was covered in ruins, I thought I was safe. But webs are a thing, which it shot out of its mouth and used to pull me towards it. I didn't have any time to react. I struggled as the webs pulled me towards its open mouth, but it was no use. I thought I was a goner when a car came whizzing by, striking the creature's legs and taking them off. Its body hit the ground face first. Not wasting any time, I pulled my shit off, which the webs was attached to, and threw it at the creature. It kept moving like a turtle on its back that was trying to flip itself over. I actually found it somewhat amusing until it started rolling over towards me. I was going to make a run for it when the same car from before struck it again. This time, the person in question got out of his car. "Fucking deer think they own the place," he said to the now dead thing in the road in a heavily slurred voice. He gave it a swift kick at one of its eyes before getting back in his car. Then he drove off, hitting several wooden mailboxes going down the road. This place really needs to do something about its drunk driving problem. But seeing as how one saved me, I guess I shouldn't complain about them too much. Pete arrived shortly after, and seeing the thing on the road, and seeing me without a shirt, quickly figured out what happened. He unlocked the door for me, then proceeded to show me ways to defend myself against the creatures. He had a spare knife with runes on them. He was kind enough to let me have it. I asked him if he had another copy of the rune book, but it was the only one, and I thought it was too important to ask him about. I just settled on taking pictures of each individual page with my phone, which, as you can imagine, is tedious as hell. My car was fixed the next day, and still on a tight schedule to make it to my grandpa's funeral, had to head out straight from the mechanic shop. I already had everything I bought from Pete's house, so there was no need to go back there. Pete drove me to the mechanic shop and saw me off there. We exchanged numbers, and I told him I'd contact him after I was done with the funeral. I didn't feel comfortable giving too much details about the funeral, but I made it to it 3 days later, and while it was hard to get through, I was glad to see my grandpa off one last time. I called Pete after the funeral at the motel I was staying at. I asked him if he was safe, and he replied he was doing alright, but was annoyed by how busy work had been this week. We talked a little while about the funeral and the fact that Mrs. Formaggio's mother had suffered a heart attack. He told me that they were staying at her mother's to give her emotional support and wouldn't be back until Thursday. Then he asked me if I wanted to meet up with him in town on Friday afternoon when he was off work. As much as I like Pete, I didn't want to revisit a town surrounded by woods filled with dangerous creatures that can kill me, so he agreed he'd meet me outside of town where the creatures didn't show up. At least that was the original plan. I was driving up to our specified location on Friday when I heard one of my tires pop. "Motherfucker," I screamed when I saw that my front right tire had run over a pile of rusty nails as well as a few glass bottles. "Who did this? Who fucking did this?" I yelled and punched my passenger side door out of sheer frustration. I wouldn't have minded so much if I had a spare tire to use, and if it didn't mean going back into that town, not seeing any other choices, I called a tow truck to come and get me. I arrived at town at about 6:30, and after hooking up my car, picking me up, I asked him if he happened to know Pete. "The pizza man? Hell yeah. I have been to a lot of pizza places, but let me tell you, Formaggio's has some good shit. But Pete's in the hospital." "What? Why?" "He had a run-in with one of those monsters today." "I'll be sure to pay him a visit then. When you do, tell him Mike says hey. I'd visit him, but work is a bitch." I drove my car from the shop an hour later, then headed to the hospital. By the time I got there, it was almost night time. Pete was especially happy to see me again. "Hey," he told me. "Hey," I said back, then relayed the message to him that Mike gave me. I'll have to give him some free pizza. I still owe him from the favor he did for me last month. Said favor being? My battery died while I was running some errands last month, and I also forgot my wallet at home. But Mike gave me a free tow and lift. That was nice of him. By the way, what the hell happened to your leg? Pete's right leg was in a purple cast. Oh, that. I had to deliver to Carl's, the dude who owns the gun store in town. Crazy Carl? Yeah, him. I usually don't have any problems when delivering to him, but in that case, I had to drive up to his home since he was still feeling sick and couldn't run his shop. Honestly, he told us if we thought it was too dangerous to deliver to his place, we didn't have to. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have volunteered to do it. Carl's house is located pretty deep in the woods outside town. To be honest, the delivery was going fine until I went up to his door with the pizzas and soda, then rang the doorbell. I felt something hit my back, then yank me. The next thing I know, I was pinned by my leg upside down to a tree. What did it do? A tall motherfucker. I've actually never seen that kind of creature in person before, only in my book. It was the one with the two mouths for eyes. You mean the one where it had a second mouth in place of its eyes? Yep, that's the one. And two long-ass tongues that it used to pull me back. It pinned my leg to the tree, using one of its what you would describe as claws. Scythe-like? Yeah, let's go with that. It hurt like fuck, but I didn't want to scream, in fear that it would attract more creatures. Did you have any weapons with you? I did, and I tried to pull one out, but the bastard knocked it out of my hand before I could use it. I was pretty sure I was gonna fucking die when it raised its other claw. Then I heard a small chink sound and saw it start to slump forward, which was not good for me, because man, did its breath stink. Ha, you got some good sense of humor for someone who was almost killed. What can I say? Laughter is the best medicine. So, as I was saying, I saw that an arrow that I figured had some runes carved into its head had been shot into the back of that tall motherfucker's skull. It turned to look at who shot it. When it did, I saw the top of its head get blown off. It fell to the ground, during which its claw slipped from my leg, and I fell as well. I ended up landing on my injured leg, which broke it as you can see. Carl rushed over to me, then brought me inside, and after bandaging up my leg as best he could and getting his pizza and soda off the ground, drove me to the hospital. He wanted to keep the pizzas that were on the ground. Yeah, but he said since they were still in the boxes, they were still good. Anyways, he drove me to the hospital. We arrived there at 3, and I've been here since. I'm happy that you survived, Pete. Same, goddammit. I have a ton of games and shows I've been meaning to try, and will not die before I get a chance to. But, can you do me a favor, Nick? I've actually been making posts on Reddit about my experience. I was supposed to do it today, but, well, you know. So you want me to do it? If it's not too much trouble. No problem. Thanks, and feel free to let them know how things have been going with you. I just might. That brings us to now. It's after 3:30 in the morning. As I'm posting this from my phone, Pete is falling asleep, and I'm about to head down to grab some food from the snack machine. Pete will probably be well enough to post to you guys again next week. I'm going to be honest. I don't certainly have a job or anything, and this town is starting to grow on me. Despite its obvious hazards, maybe it's just because of Pete. But I'm starting to like this place. Who knows? I might just stay for a little while after he's discharged from the hospital. This is Nick, signing out. Hey, it's the Pizza Man again. Hope you all saw the last post that Nick made. Since the incident in the forest, I have been released from the hospital. Thankfully, the creatures didn't cause any permanent damage. It just took some bandages to heal the wounds, and my leg was put in a cast. Although, getting used to those crutches has been a pain in the ass. Nick had to help me up several times when I've lost my balance and fallen on my face. Speaking of Nick, he's actually moved in with me. We got to talking some more since the last post, and it turns out he actually had been kicked out by his parents. The reason for it was because he got kicked out of his college. It was because of some other students who he had problems with claimed he was harassing them. Those students had been going to that college for years and were well liked by everyone, so everyone believed him over Nick. He got a call from his dad, who berated him over what had happened. Apparently his dad and mom believed the school and the other students over their own son. Great parents, right? Nick was told by his dad not to bother coming home for a place to stay. Then, shortly after, Nick found out his number had been blocked by them. He did see them again at the funeral, but he didn't bother talking to them, and they didn't bother speaking with him. Since Nick had been banned from his home, he had been drifting from place to place. He would stay at the cheapest motels he could find. Sometimes he would even sleep in his car. Truth be told, he was just about out of money when he returned to my town. I normally wouldn't share information so personal, but I figured you'd all be wondering why Nick decided to move here, of all places. I asked him if it was okay to tell you all this, and he said it was. I managed to get him an interview at Formaggio's. According to Nick, it went something like this. "Have you had any experience in this kind of restaurant?" Mr. Formaggio asked Nick. "I've worked for Domino's for a couple of years." "Good enough. You're hired." So now, he and I are working together. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I have been back to work since the last post, mostly to show Nick the ropes. Because of my injury, there are a few conditions in regards to my going to work. For one, I can only head to work when it's day out, and I have to be off before dark. If I'm working alone, I'm closing with someone. I can stay to help them close, and lastly, if there's any fog or thunderstorms out, I get the day off. But I want to talk about something that happened on Thursday, because what occurred, I have never seen nor heard about. Nick and I were at Formaggio's. It was later in the day, and most of the customers were heading home. The only customers we had left were Chuck and Sam, who were getting ready for their night patrol. "Should I tell them to leave since we're closing?" Nick asked me. "Nah, they're cool." "Hey, Pete, I don't think we've been introduced to your new friend here. I think I overheard your name is Nick, right?" Chuck asked him. "Yeah, it's nice to meet you, Chuck," Nick said, reading the badge. They shook hands. Then Nick did the same thing with Sam. They all chatted for a little bit before I told Nick we needed to get busy closing. After telling us bye, Chuck and Sam left. Then Nick and I got closing. Fortunately, there are plenty of counters and such for me to use in order to get around, so I didn't have too much trouble. Nick learned pretty quick. I showed him how to shut off and clean the ovens and dishes, and where to store food in the walk-in fridge. He had taken out the trash, and I was counting to see how many of which ingredient we had left, and which ones we would need to buy. I was halfway done counting when Nick called me from the dining room. "Hey, Pete, can you tell me what the hell this is?" "It's probably just some," I was about to say, until I saw what Nick was looking at. Up in the sky, far ahead of us, was a swirling rainbow color mass, which was hovering above the forest in the distance. "Ever seen anything like this before?" "No, I've never heard about anything like this. I haven't even seen it in my book." "Think it's dangerous?" "Don't know. Wait, I think the thing is hovering over Carl's house. Take a picture or something of that thing. I'm going to call Carl's shop." "What happens if something comes out of that thing and attacks us?" "We'll make a break for it." I called Carl, and he picked up on the first couple of rings. "Pete, what's up?" "Carl, where are you right now?" "Just in back of my store. About to close up. Why, need something?" "Look outside towards your property." He did as I asked. "What the fuck? How long has that thing been there?" "Not sure, Nick. And I just noticed it. We didn't see it before, so I'm guessing it just appeared tonight." Chuck and the others have probably noticed it already, but I think I'll call them anyway. "Have you seen any creatures yet?" Actually, we haven't, come to think of it. They usually start coming out at this time." "Do you think the thing in the sky has something to do with it?" Before he could answer, the thing in the sky slammed into the ground. The impact could be heard all across town. "The fuck? You see what that thing just did?" "Yeah, I Oh, shit! Something came slithering towards the restaurant. Said thing was a giant worm creature. Its mouth was circular, with sharp teeth. The face had multiple eyes, matching the rainbow color of the thing that was in the sky. Please tell me the restaurant has the runes to keep that thing back. Pete, everything alright? Carl asked. We're gonna need some help here, I said, seeing multiple returned and other creatures also coming towards the restaurant. Don't worry, I'll be there as soon as possible, Carl said, before I heard a loud crash come from his end, and the call went dead. Carl? Carl! I yelled. Oh, shit. Something happened to him, didn't it? Looks like it. Does that mean he's... I don't know. I hope not. Carl's tough. We have to believe he'll pull through. Where does that leave us, then? The worm thing could be here at any moment. Call the department. Once they hear about what happened, they'll come here. Nick called and told them about the situation. They told him that they were on their way, but it would be a while, since there were a lot of creatures. I said it's going to take like 10 minutes. We'll just have to hope we can survive until then. Look under the counter. You'll find some weapons. Jesus Christ, look at all these guns. Yeah, toss me a shotgun and a box of shells. Quickly, now. I said, as the worm was now quickly slithering over towards us. I quickly loaded and cocked the gun as it started to rear its head back. As it started to strike, I threw the door open and gave it a shot to the face. It was knocked back, and it returned, tried to take the opportunity to rush me. I knocked it back with the butt of the gun, then quickly closed the door. You almost let one of them in. I didn't have a choice. If that thing breaks the glass, they'll all be able to get in. I thought the runes are supposed to keep them back. They do, but opening the door creates an opening in the barrier. Obviously, we can't exactly draw runes in midair. Now, do me a favor. Before the worm thing recovers, you ever shoot a gun? A few times. Grab a gun and ammo, then head up to the roof and start firing at those things. I'll meet you up there in just a second. We don't get paid enough for this, he said, climbing the ladder to the roof hatch. I had to shoot the worm thing again, and several returns before Nick started firing. When he did, I leapt over to the ladder, then made my way up. I saw several winged creatures descending towards Nick, and shot them all back. Well, I didn't even notice them. Thanks, Pete. Don't mention it. Just keep shooting. I got the other side of the building covered. The worm and other creatures continued attacking for the next 5 minutes. We heard other gunshots coming from different parts of town. One of the flying creatures managed to get past me, then sank its teeth into Nick's ribs. Ow, you motherfucker! You piece of shit! He said, pulling a knife and stabbing out both of its eyes. He aimed his shotgun at it, then blew its head off. Sorry, Nick, I was reloading. Oh, shit, I said. I looked up to see another winged creature descending towards me. I was able to block its attack, but it started to lift me by the gun I held. I thought quickly, pulling out a knife and stabbing in its neck. Seeing as how the creatures that attacked us were dead, save for the worm, we decided to train our guns on it. Unfortunately, we were met with the sound of clicks when we pulled the triggers. Is there any more ammo down below? I asked. No, I grabbed all the ammo we had when I came up here. Should I grab the handguns? They won't do any good against this thing. Then, what are we going to do? It's getting ready to attack again. The worm got ready to attack again when it was knocked back once more. We looked over to see Carl with his gun pointed at the beast. He ran over and tossed something in its mouth. Then he ran away from it fast as he could. What happened next was the worm's head blew up. Bits of blue blood rained down from the sky. Ew, some of it got in my mouth, Nick said, spitting. Never mind that. We had bigger problems. Look. The explosion had attracted another horde of creatures who swarmed towards Carl. He was able to hold them off for a little while, but eventually it looked as if he would be overpowered. Thankfully, Chuck and Sam arrived just in time. They took out the other creatures. Thank fucking Christ, Nick said. You said it. Let's head back down. Shortly later, the 5 of us were sitting at one of the tables. I asked Carl what had happened, and he said that a creature he hadn't seen before smashed through the store window and grabbed him, but he was able to break free and kill it. Chuck apologized for taking so long, and said they've been dealing with calls all night. They told Nick and me to stay safe before he and Sam left. When he did, I asked Carl, By the way, how did you make that thing's head explode? Grenade. What? How did you get a... Don't worry about it. You got the job done, right? True. Need a lift home? I looked at Nick. No thanks. My car luckily didn't get damaged. Alright then. Can't believe I have to get my store's windows replaced and redrew them runes on it. What a pain in the ass. Anyway, take care, you two. Take care, and thanks, Carl, I said. Don't mention it. And, oh, Nick, Carl asked as he was almost at the door. What is it? Carl pointed at me, then said, make sure you have his back. Nick smiled and said, yeah, you got it. We locked up and went home after Carl left. On the way home, we saw twice as many police cars as usual out, and more creatures we haven't seen before. Nick and I are lucky to have survived our encounter, and he was fortunate enough to only need some rubbing alcohol and a few bandages on the spot where the creature bit him. I don't know why that thing in the sky appeared, or how these new creatures are presumably connected to it, but we are going to get to the bottom of this. Knowing Carl, he'll probably try to investigate whatever it was that landed near his property. I'll call him tomorrow to see what he's found out. Then Nick and I will go to his house later this week. I just hope he doesn't get himself killed, and I hope that I don't run into one of those tall cunts again. See y'all again soon. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. You know, there are days when I really fucking hate this job. In particular, we had a bit of a hostage situation literally the day after my last post. I know what you might be thinking. Who the hell robs a pizza place? That's what I thought when someone walked in around closing and pulled a gun on us. And by us, I mean Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio, Nick, and myself. The man in particular looked to be the biker type. He was overweight and looked to be in his late 40s or early 50s with a long beard. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. It's usually either someone seriously fucked up on drugs or passerby who thinks they can rob a store consequence-free, then skip town. Seeing as how it tends to happen frequently, we actually have a bit of a protocol, and that's where the monsters actually come in handy. If we just can't get to a gun without the robber noticing, believe me, we've tried to warn him not to go out, but he didn't listen. They never do. Some returned, tore him apart before he could even get on his motorcycle. He didn't even see them coming. Nick was understandably nauseous from seeing it and threw up. He wasn't used to it like the rest of us were. I remember just starting out. Seeing him spew actually made me feel a bit nostalgic. After that, it was just a matter of making sure the coast was clear. Then, getting the money back. Now, the plan won't work if the robber got swallowed whole. Sometimes the monsters who swallow them will cough up the money, which is usually in a plastic grocery bag. But man, we were doing good. We didn't have a robbery at our store for like a year until then. But the silver lining is we managed to get the cash back. Enough of that though. I want to tell y'all about what I've learned about that, what I'm going to refer to as the rainbow thingy that I mentioned in the last post. To start, I got some bad news. The town lost some people to the new monsters that showed up. Me and people I know were lucky enough to have survived. But other people who didn't have the weapons to fight these things weren't so lucky. Chuck told me that he found 5 bodies, and that 5 were missing. He told me they tried their hardest, but they just didn't have the equipment or the manpower to deal with these new creatures. Truth be told, he looked pretty distraught about the whole situation. Chuck is a good guy, and I hate seeing him like that. So, I promised to help him solve this problem. That started with me calling Carl for an update on the rainbow thingy. Bizarrely and annoyingly enough, it seems to have vanished since landing near his property. He said he spent hours looking for it, but found nothing. He even got a search party together to help him, but it yielded similar results. The only thing they did see was a tall figure with golden eyes. Not gold as in yellow. Carl and several others described them as looking like 2 big almond-shaped eyes that looked like they were made of solid gold. They couldn't make out the rest of the figure because of how dark it was in the forest. The only reason I noticed the eyes were because of how bright they were. I told him not to be so reckless and how dangerous the forest is. He told me, "No shit. I only live here, Pete." I said to him that his point was taken and to call if any new developments occurred. Naturally, he's also been keeping the police updated. Speaking of which, Carl has actually hooked them up with some explosives to deal with the new creatures, in exchange for them looking the other way on the fact he owned them. It's supposed to be a temporary solution until we find the right combination of whatever colored runes to keep these things away, assuming that's what will work on them. Now, the town was lucky enough to not have lost anyone since that last incident, mostly due to the fact the town is now under an emergency home before sunset curfew. It was in effect until we were able to solve the problem. As much as I hate working on my days off, the weekend is the only time where I can investigate anything. Our search started on Saturday. We headed to the town library to see if Alice knew anything. Alice is a nice woman. She's 30 and works alone. I don't know how she manages everything without help, but she finds a way. She greeted us with her usual cheerful demeanor, and I quickly introduced her to Nick. After they shook hands, the three of us got to talking. "So, Pete, it's been a while since you've been here, and I don't order pizza, so what's the occasion?" "It's about what happened last week." "Oh, that. It's a real shame what happened. I'm surprised I didn't have any trouble, to be honest. I only heard about what happened the next day." "What, you mean none of the new creatures attacked the library?" Nick asked her. "No, none." "It's not that hard to believe. The library is so quiet, the creatures tend to ignore it. Anyway, we were hoping there might be something here to help us deal with the new ones," I said. "You mean a book? I'm not sure if there is." "Ah, come on. You don't have any old books lying around or anything?" Nick asked. "Well, I do have this one book. It's from the town's early settlers, but it doesn't have any symbols, just pictures. Mind if we take a look?" "Sure thing." The book she handed us was old and leathery. It looked like she had made repairs on it to keep it from falling apart. Looking through it, we saw sketches of various monsters, some of which I didn't recognize, but two caught my eye. One being the worm creature we saw, and the other a pair of eyes with the word gold beside them and a question mark. That was on the last page. After looking through the rest of the book, we closed it. Then I told Alice we needed to head out. "Thanks for the help, Alice," I told her. "No problem, Pete. It's been too long since I had some Formaggio's pizza." "Well then, I'll have to bring some by later. Bye." After that, Nick and I got into his car. Then he asked me where to next. I told him I was about to give Carl a call, when coincidentally my phone started to ring, and saw that it was him. I put it on speaker. Then he began to speak with us. "Carl, I was just about to call you. Is something up?" "I need some help. Everyone else is busy, so I figured to call you." "What exactly do you need help with?" "No time to explain. Just come over here," he told me, then hung up. "Should we head over there?" "I got a feeling we should." It didn't take long to drive there, only about a half an hour. Carl was waiting for us, away from his property. "You should probably park there," he said. "Why?" Nick asked. "Because I have traps in my yard." "What kind?" I hesitantly asked. "Just some bear traps." "Oh, well, it doesn't sound too bad. A few landmines, I got some C4 lying around, and there is..." "Why? Why would you have all of that?" Nick asked. "'Cause of the new fuckers. They come anywhere near my property, they'll leave in pieces." "What if someone happens to wander over here?" "It's cool. I have barbed wire fence set up. See?" he asked, pointing. Between the trees, we saw parts of a fence he installed. "When did you get all this?" I asked. "Earlier this week. Some people helped me install it. The fence, I mean. All the other stuff I put in by myself. Now, hop out. I'll help you inside, Pete." "So, what exactly do you need us for?" I asked once we were inside. We could see clear, locked cabinets with weapons in them lining his walls. "This," he said, holding up a long silver pendant. At the end of it was a flat golden star with a clear diamond imprinted into it. "Oh, I mean, it's pretty and all, but did you really need us to come all the way out here for that?" He rolled his eyes, then responded, "I got it from that golden eye fucker." Huh? How? Honestly, pure luck on my part. I was searching the forest again when I caught some movement from the corner of my eye. I thought it was just another creature, so I quickly turned and swiped at it with my pocket knife. Afterwards, I heard something hit my boot, followed by fleeing footsteps. I got a glimpse of those golden eyes, so I know it was the same one. That reminds me, we actually saw a sketch of those eyes. It was in an old settler's book that Alice had at the library. So this isn't the first time that thing has shown up, huh? Guess not. Anything new about the rainbow thingy? Unfortunately not. Damn. Anyway, I need you guys for a stakeout. There's a chance the golden eye may be after it. That's your plan. Who knows how long it'll take to show up after all, Nick said. Don't worry, I got plenty of room and food. Make yourselves comfortable. Nick and I sat by the window, watching and waiting. It took until sunset for me to spot something in between the trees. I saw what looked like two pieces of gold floating in the darkness. Look, I said. Carl and Nick looked out the same window I did. That's the son of a bitch, come on, Carl said, grabbing a rifle then opening the door. Hang on, I said, grabbing my crutches. I hopped out right behind Carl and Nick. You want this? Carl asked, a pair of eyes, holding the pendant out in front of him. Carl, don't antagonize it. We have no idea what it's capable of, Nick said. Carl ignored Nick's comment and continued. It didn't take long for the figure that the eyes were attached to walk around to the entrance of the fence and into the light of the sunset. The three of us were surprised to see a stereotypical gray alien. He was tall, I'd say over 8 feet. Its mouth was in a neutral position, as it stared at us with its shining gold eyes. It held a large metal briefcase in one of its hands, and it wore a black business suit with a red tie that it looked really good in, if I'm being honest. The alien stared at us for a few moments before Carl aimed his rifle at it. Wait, I told Carl, putting my hands up to stop him from shooting. What? He asked, lowering his gun. It's not doing anything. It's just looking at us. So, what? Are we just supposed to have a staring contest with this fucking thing? I can at least scare it off. Maybe we can just ask it to leave, Nick suggested. Of course, why didn't I think of that? Here, I'll try, Carl said. You, walk off my property, he told the alien, finger walking on air. Understand? He asked it sarcastically. Clearly, the alien replied calmly. We were shocked, to say the least. You can talk, Carl said. I think the answer to that question is fairly obvious. Who are you, and why are you here? I asked it. My name in your native tongue is probably too long for you humans to remember, but in English it translates to Zol, and I have two answers for your second question. The obvious one is my necklace. It is important to me, and I want it back. And the other answer is in relation to the new creatures, which I'm sure this area has experienced again. What do you know about it? Plenty. If you let me inside, I can tell you all about it. Now hang on. I don't know if we can trust this guy. He can get his necklace back, but I want him off my property, Carl said. What makes it yours? Zol asked him. Because I was here first. Pardon me. Were you alive 151 years ago when I came here last? I don't recall seeing you. Then again, 151 years is quite a while, so my memory may be hazy. Smart-ass motherfucker, Carl said. What's in it for us if we let you in? I asked Zol. This, he said, pulling an old book out of his pocket. He showed a page that had a creature we didn't recognize on it, with some runes drawn beside it. You know how to stop these new creatures? Nick said. Indeed, I do. Will you accept my offer? Carl? I asked, looking at him. Fine. I should probably warn you where the explosives are buried. No need. I saw when you put them in, Zol said, casually stepping around them, much to Carl's irritation. Later, Zol was sitting on the couch beside Carl. His pendant was on the table beside his open briefcase. In it looked to be some kind of laptop. This is insane. There's a real-life alien sitting on Carl's couch, Nick said, gesturing toward Zoel with his arms. He and I were talking in the kitchen. I know. Honestly, I feel like I should be more surprised than I am right now, but I'm not, I replied. I guess living near all this other shit has caused us to be less surprised at events like this. Don't get me wrong, it's still crazy. But like you said, it doesn't feel as crazy as it should. Guys, Carl called to us, then told us to come into the living room. Something up? Nick asked once we were seated. I wanted to explain some things. First, Carl here seems to be under the impression that I brought these new creatures. This is not the case. I merely arrived at the same time they started showing up. Then, what's causing them to appear? I have a theory. The second thing to clear up is about what you refer to as the rainbow thingy. That is my ship. I have it hidden in the forest. Let me guess. It's invisible, right? Carl asked sarcastically. Actually, yes. Oh. So, what's your theory? I asked Soul. To put it simply, someone let these creatures in. Not just the new ones, but the old ones as well. What? Who would do that? And why? I'm not sure, but I came here to search for an answer. Why would you do that? Because I promised the townspeople I would help them when I returned, and because my planet is being overrun by these creatures. I am searching for the way to stop them once and for all. Your planet? I am only one of a handful of survivors that managed to escape. As we speak, these monsters have taken it over. I happened upon this planet where parts of it were giving off the same energy readings as the portals they came from. Oh, so they do come out of portals, Carl said. Yes, we tried to fight them, but we eventually ran out of resources and were overtaken. Well, if you help us, we'll help you, I said. Good to know. I say we search tomorrow. I've been searching by myself. For what? Another being like me, or some trace of them. Got it, but we gotta be home before tomorrow night. Very well. I think I'll head up now. Can you three do me a favor and not mention our encounter to anyone? I think it'd be for the best. We all agreed, then Zoel left. We went to bed shortly after that, to prepare for the long day ahead of us. The next day wasn't very rewarding. We covered a lot of ground, and found nothing. I tried helping as best I could, but hopping around with crutches made me a burden more than anything else. The only thing I could do was be a lookout for any creatures, which to my credit, I was decent at, and was able to warn everybody before we were attacked. The other silver lining was that Nick got the book Zoel showed us to Alice. He told her that we happened to find it in the forest, but we didn't remember where exactly. She told us that she would immediately get to work making copies for everyone. When all of us were back at Carl's house, I asked Zoel if there was any chance we could see the inside of his ship. He told me he would think about it, but it'd have to be next week, and he stressed that we were not allowed to touch anything unless he gave us permission. So that's a bit of motivation to get me through the week. I'll be sure to let you know about the inside of Zoel's ship in my next post.
Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Hello, travelers. PA Nightmares here. I've noticed that over 30% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So, if you're a new or a returning viewer and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what I do, liking the video and commenting as well, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and it really does help the channel grow. Well, I've taken enough of your time. On to the main event. Finally, I'm able to update you guys. I would have done it sooner if it weren't for those FBI bastards showing up. Right now, me, Carl, and Nick are at a shitty hotel. It smells awful, but at least there's Wi-Fi. But I can't be online for long. So a few days ago, after my last post, these black SUVs with tinted windows came into town. Nick and I were working a shift with Mr. Formaggio, while Mrs. Formaggio was out getting us ingredients. It was in the middle of me and Nick's shift when one of them parked in front of the store. We also saw that more of them seemed to be stopping and parking in front of other stores. But not just other stores, homes as well. Two blurry-looking bald men stepped out and entered our store. Both were wearing business suits, and one of them had a pair of reflective sunglasses on. "Can we help you?" Mr. Formaggio asked. The two men showed us their badges. "We're with the FBI and wanted to ask you folks some questions," the one with sunglasses said. When he said that, Nick and I exchanged a concerned look. Thankfully, none of them noticed. "What sort of questions?" Mr. Formaggio replied. "A few days ago, we received reports of strange lights that could have been seen hovering over your town. The reports were made by people in a neighboring town. Do you happen to know anything about that?" Mr. Formaggio didn't know about Zul. He ended up encountering him a day after my last post. He nearly had a heart attack when he saw him, but Carl was able to convince him that Zul meant no harm. "I can't say that I do," he replied. "Is that right? Well, I'm sure you folks won't mind if we take a look around. Oh, and I'm sure I don't need to inform you that you can be punished for lying to the FBI." "I'm well aware of that. Can I get you anything?" "No, thank you. We're very busy," he said. Then he and his partner left. Now, we were pretty pissed. The reason being, we've been trying to get the government involved to deal with these weird creatures in town for years now. But they never responded. It's like, "Oh, freaky monsters that can rip you apart?" Pfft, whatever. Lights in the sky. We'll be over ASAP. So yeah, I'm sure you can understand why we're just a little salty. Anyway, when they left, we immediately called Carl and told him the situation. He was at his home at the time, and he told us that he'd warned Zol right away. He also told us that he wanted to place an order, of course. In this case, it was 2 supreme pizzas and an orange soda. "Fuck, they're after Zol. Who knows what they'll do to him if they find him," Nick said once we were off the phone with Carl. "Relax. They don't know about him. If we keep quiet, everything will be fine. And besides, if they stay overnight, they may be more likely to help with our monster problem. And they may be after the ship above all else," Mr. Formaggio said. "Those bastards want to see the inside of the ship before I do. We can't let that happen. We need to get them out of town as soon as possible," I said. "What do you think about them taking care of a monster problem?" Nick asked. "Oh yeah, I guess I got caught up in the excitement and forgot. Do you think Nick and I should head over to Carl's right now?" I asked Mr. Formaggio. "It might look a little suspicious to head there right now. I think we should give it at least an hour. Nick, take out the trash. Tell us what you see when you're out there." I took some more calls while Nick took out the trash. When he got back, he informed us that there were far more SUVs than we originally thought. More must have arrived while the men talked to us. Nick said at least 100 more seemed to have shown up. What really put us on edge is that he saw the government start to get in arguments with store owners. When they did, they closed the blinds to those stores. "Shit, I hope that doesn't happen to Carl," I said. He doesn't trust people involved with the government, which is ironic given his potential background. I don't know much about it, and haven't asked out of politeness, but I've heard rumors around town that he has some military background. If he does, I haven't found any record of him serving, and he may have a distrust of the government due to a supposed service. Anyway, we had a small rush, which made that hour go by pretty quick. Once it died down, me and Nick drove up to Carl's. Along the way, we saw some government officials stepping out of homes, one of which seemed to be wiping some blood off his face. We arrived at Carl's to see 2 SUVs parked in front of his fence. "Well, this can't be good," Nick said as we got out. He walked while I used my crutches. We went into his yard to see him surrounded by 4 agents. His hands were cuffed behind his back, and one of the agents had his foot on his back. Nick was about to call out, but I shushed him, then gestured for him to sneak around and go into Carl's house. The agents were too focused on Carl to notice, and I would have just slowed Nick down. He gave me Carl's pizzas and soda to hold, then made his way to his front door. He made sure to keep on the grass so that it wouldn't make any noise. I heard the agent yelling at Carl, asking him about the ship. Carl responded that he didn't know and that they can fuck themselves. One responded by grinding his shoe on his temple. It was at that moment I decided to do something. I figured Carl would prefer the pizzas over the soda, so I chucked the 2-liter at the agent's head, who had his foot on Carl's temple. The bottle burst open, soaking his head and suit in orange soda. Some even got on the other agents. They stared daggers at me. "Who the fuck do you think you are doing that to me?" the one I threw the bottle at asked. "I'm the pizza man, and that was for you assholes taking so long. We've been trying to contact you for years, and now you show up and start terrorizing us, so quit whining about being a little sticky. I could put you in prison for what you just did." "Is that right? Why don't you stick around for a bit? This area is very active at night." The other agents were about to move in on me, but the soda-soaked agent stopped him. "You say you threw the bottle because we took so long, but could the real reason be that this man is a friend of yours?" he asked, pointing to Carl. "Of course he is. We all know each other in this town. And Carl's a valuable customer. Look, whatever you want to know, he obviously doesn't know. So get lost. I'll even pay for the dry cleaning of everyone's clothes. That way, you won't be laughed at when you get back to your office, or wherever you government people go, when you get through with this shit." "We aren't leaving until we get what we want." "What branch of government are you guys with anyway?" "We are the branch that investigates paranormal and supernatural occurrences." "So like the Men in Black?" "No, we aren't the goddamn Men in Black or the motherfucking X-Files. We were around before that movie, or that show was," he growled, taking me by surprise. The agent began trying to calm down. "Relax, deep breaths," one of them said to him. He breathed in deeply, then exhaled. "No, the branch we serve under doesn't really have a name. We've taken to calling it the Mystery Branch," he said to me after regaining his composure. "Whoa, how many episodes of Scooby-Doo did you guys have to watch to come up with that one?" His eye twitched at that statement, and I thought he was going to go on another rant, but he kept his composure. "The name isn't official, and I would watch my mouth if I were you, or something may happen to Carl here." "Well, obviously he doesn't know anything, so why are you people still here?" "You expect us to believe that? Just take a look at this man. He's a fucking loon. Crazy tends to attract this kind of stuff." "Touchy. Is he still awake?" he asked, looking down at Carl. Then he took his foot off Carl's temple. Carl moaned in pain, but managed to speak. "Fuck you," Carl said, then spat at the agent's shoe. He glared at Carl. "This man's a friend of yours, correct? I wonder if you'd be more willing to talk if he was at risk," he asked, pulling out a gun, then aimed it at me. "Shooting a guy in crutches. You must be very proud of yourself," I said. "Shut up. Now I'm going to give Carl here till the count of 10 before I shoot your dick off," the agent yelled, aiming the gun at my crotch. "Not my dick," I yelled. "Then he needs to talk. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before he got to 10, we heard several gunshots. The agents fell to the ground, rolling around in pain, while clutching their legs. The head of the group dropped his gun. Luckily, he didn't end up shooting me out of reflex. "Nice shot, Nick," I called to him. He was standing on Carl's porch with one of his guns in his hand. "You sneaky little shits," the agent hissed. Carl rolled over and snatched the keys from the agent's belt, then unlocked his cuffs with one of them. He knocked out the head agent with one punch. The others tried drawing their guns, but he knocked them out as well. "Are you guys okay given the circumstances?" Nick asked after running to us. "I've been better. Impressed your aim has gotten so good." "Yeah, the lessons you gave me really paid off. Where's Zoll?" "When you guys called, I told him to hide until I knew those government bastards left town. I don't know where he is, but we need to leave town." More of these agents will probably come here. What? What about the others in town? I asked. They'll be fine. They don't know anything. Shouldn't we call them first? No, I heard them say they wanted to put this town on lockdown. They'll probably confiscate people's phones soon. Speaking of phones, get rid of yours. Seriously? Yes, you too, Nick. Nick sighed and smashed his phone. I was about to do the same thing when I realized something. I accidentally grabbed one of my old phones. Shit, I said. Wait, that may actually help us. If we go somewhere with Wi-Fi, you can use your phone to access the internet. As long as we don't plaster our last names and we are careful, we'll be safe. I have an old laptop that we can use, Carl said. Then ran inside his home. He came back out with his laptop and several bags. What's in these? Nick asked when Carl gave him one. Just some supplies ready in case I needed to move quickly. Now let's go. It's gonna be dark soon. We took Carl's car, then sped down the road from his home. The road led directly into town. He was going to take the next exit out of town when we saw several SUVs blocking the exit. Fuck, we're too late, Carl cursed under his breath. Multiple agents were in front of the SUVs. One of them had a megaphone. Turn back now and go back to your homes or store, the agent called to us. Shit, what do we do? I asked. Wait, Carl said, pointing to the sky. We saw some heavy storm clouds and a streak of lightning up ahead. Rain began pouring from the sky. The agent began yelling at us through the rain. He told us if we weren't going to move, we'd be forced to. He and the other agents were going to get back in their vehicles when one of them yelled and pointed in the sky where at least a dozen flying creatures. They were joined by 12 returned and several of the long-necked monsters. They screamed when the returned attacked. A few agents got killed by them, but the others managed to shoot and kill the returned. That was when the other creatures joined in. The long-necked one pounced, then gobbled up most of the other agents. It accidentally knocked the SUVs out of the way in the process. One agent managed to get by it, but was torn apart and eaten by the flying creatures. Not the way out I was hoping for, but I'll take it, Carl said, speeding through the gap between the vehicles. The creatures were too busy eating to notice us. We didn't stop for 3 hours, all the while checking to make sure we weren't followed. We've been on the run for over a week now. We only stop to sleep at shitty motels. Carl carries a lot of cash on him, and we've made sure to use aliases anywhere we stay. We've been making sure to take turns keeping watch. By typing this, I'm sure you can guess it's my turn to keep watch. I don't know what we're going to do. We have no way of contacting anyone in town without being tracked, and we have no idea when or even if those government guys will leave. I asked Carl what we should do, and he just told me that he knows a guy that we can see. He won't elaborate, no matter how much Nick and I ask. The worst part of this is that I never saw inside his old ship, but I hope he's okay. For now I better get off. Since we've been on the run, I tend to get paranoid if I'm online for too long, but I feel like y'all should be updated. I can't log off as the pizza man right now, I guess, so this is just Pete logging off. See y'all next time. I would like to thank tonight's author or authors for allowing me to use their works. If you enjoyed this, the author's links will be in the description below. Please check them out and let them know PA sent you. Also, if you like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links to my merch store, my website, and all my other social medias will be in the description below. As always, I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. All of their names will appear on screen. I'll make sure to put all their links in the description below so you guys can check them out as well if you'd like.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
I would like to thank tonight's author or authors for allowing me to use their works. If you enjoyed this, the author's links will be in the description below. Please check them out and let them know PA sent you. Also, if you like to walk around representing my realm and gaining new travelers, the links to my merch store, my website, and all my other social medias will be in the description below. As always, I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. All of their names will appear on screen. I'll make sure to put all their links in the description below so you guys can check them out as well if you'd like.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.